Sometimes it's hard to find connections. You might be lonesome in some small town thinking there's no hope for music which plays inside your mind, the murals made by dust on hardware store walls, the accidental poetry coming out of the cashier's mouth. Does anyone else notice these things? Does anyone else care? Are they all just ignoring it? Well, today you've found us, the ones who feel it too. In the late 90s, a group of odd youngsters started making music skits, writings, and friends by using their home of Nowhere, Ohio, as a muse. Now, spiraling out from that core, we are here to talk with you so that life won't be so lonely anymore. We've got an indie pop band, Third Class, at thirdclass.net, an inappropriate comedy troupe, Bullskit Productions, at bullskit.com, and so much more, including the hip-hop of Summer Camp Steve, the sample-based soundscapes of Juche, the long-running sponsorship of the Speaking of Music show at YouTube, and the Orange Avocado, a cold-pressed juicery at 1393 Boardman Canfield Road, Boardman, Ohio. Get humorous, introspective, philosophical, and candid by welcoming yourself into your new favorite show, Nursery, a podcast from Ohio's creative voice. If you'd like to sponsor an episode, email us at cloegrave@gmail.com, CHLOEGRAVE@gmail.com. Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, broadcasting to you, not live, from the greater Cleveland area, I present to you Nursery Podcast. You hear our theme music? That was a guy playing a brass instrument. My name is Lee Boyle.
Greg.
I'm Craig.
So, I'm Lee. This is Greg and Craig. We have quite a show for you today, a real lineup of sorts. First thing I want to touch...
Hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts, ladies and gentlemen. Samuel L. Jackson, Jurassic Park. So classic. Anyhow.
You said that?
What did you say to me?
I don't remember that scene.
This is the worst start to a podcast.
I don't even know what to say to that. Sorry. It doesn't matter. What we're here to talk about is Major League, an even more classic movie, Charlie Sheen. We are living in a time, people, where Cleveland sports all of a sudden has jumped the tracks, and I don't know how to talk about sports, but anyway, it's jumped the tracks, and now it's on its own. They're winning. So what's happening right now is we're October 21st, 2016, where the Cavs have won the World Series. The Browns have, nothing really has happened with them. And the Indians are doing very well. Here to talk about it, our correspondents, Greg and Craig. Greg, what is your thought on Cleveland sports in this era?
I've never been more happier in my life.
Yeah, man, I see that you're all caps here and there posts, and I can tell that you're actually being genuine because it's very rare. Even the Penguins won something this year, correct?
I thought this was going to be a Cleveland.
We'll just touch on it and we'll move on. It's just Greg.
You don't pollute it with Yinzer nonsense.
Listeners, just
actually, I don't really care. I'm just as a Cleveland fan, I'm supposed to say.
Right? Yeah, you have to. Steelers suck and all that. But my friend Greg here, he's a Penguins fan.
Yeah, I'm going for 3 out of 4 championship-wise, minus the Browns, obviously. They're going to win out and win the Super Bowl, obviously, but.
How cool would that be, though?
I would probably just kill myself at that point. There's no worth. If the Browns won the Super Bowl magically, there's nothing worth living anymore.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a known thing that the day after a Browns Super Bowl, the city would pretty much commit like a mass suicide. Mm-hmm. Kind of like one of those cults, where they all just gather together and as they're smiling, just either poison themselves or jump off a bridge.
And the smile is an important detail in all this.
It would be, it's a very happy suicide.
Yeah, weirdly, it would be about like joy.
Which I guess is the best kind of suicide. So that's good.
I prefer awkward or slightly upset suicides, but I get it. I agree to disagree.
To each his own.
Yeah. But anyways, Major League, younger listeners, if you don't know, the movie with Charlie Sheen where they have the Indians.
1989.
89, where they have the Cleveland Indians baseball team win the World Series. In the movie.
Actually, they don't even win.
Oh yeah. What happens exactly? Yes.
The movie ends with them winning the game that gets them into the World Series. But as you find out in the stupid second movie, they never actually end up winning the World Series.
Is that right?
I've never watched the second one, so I have no idea.
Well, that's good because the second
one's not great.
Second one's pure horseshit. Don't even.
It's kind of like they take. Not that I'm opposed to this, but since the first one exists, it's kind of sucks. Like I feel like they kind of make a Wayans Brothers movie or whatever you want, or Naked Gun type movie, whereas the first one kind of like
of a spoof of itself,
which is fine. Like if it was existed on its own. But in this case, it's like
it lost all its shit.
Yeah, there was a movie that preceded it with like a little bit of gravity to the situation of the actors, and then the second one just was goofball stuff. Not that it matters. But Charlie Sheen was, there was rumors.
Got his name in the movie. In case you're curious.
But as of this date, in October 2016, Charlie Sheen, the celebrity who played Ricky Vaughn in Major League, has been called upon by fans on Twitter to possibly, even though that's probably not going to happen, to possibly throw
out the first pitch of the first game of the World Series.
Which was like a fun rumor to see them tweet
and throw it out in character as his character
as the guy
in the movie.
And if you don't know, this character has like a buzz cut and glasses with tape on him, and he's real cool.
Very cool.
Super cool.
Oh, he's just a stud.
I would bang him.
I would too, even if he was out of character.
No comment.
That means you would bang him.
Yeah.
But in general, Craig.
Yes.
The Cleveland Cavaliers, the basketball team, recently attained their own championship.
June 19th, 2016.
That's right. And led by a basketball player by the name of LeBron James. They did this thing and
just let him go.
They did this thing where they won stuff. So, Akron, Cleveland, everything else. What does that mean, A, economically for this area, and B, culturally?
Economically, doesn't mean that much that they won it. The only economic parts of it that are good are that your team goes to the playoffs. The further they go, the more people tend to go to the games and then go out to the restaurants and stuff. So it doesn't really matter that much that they win it all. All it really matters economically is if your team goes to the playoffs a lot, and that way people, are just out and about more in general.
Yes.
Culturally, it means everything, man. They did it! They pulled it out! They broke a 50, whatever the fuck year curse. It was amazing. They broke the curse. Cleveland is no longer cursed. Mm-hmm. If I ever hear anyone say, oh, typical Cleveland, this is what always happens, bad things happen to Cleveland, I'm going to say, no!
That's right. That's right.
Things are great here now. Things are awesome.
Because next year is now.
Next year is... Wait, did you say now? Yeah.
That's up on some of the flyers. When the Cavs won, that was like a little slogan on some of the flyers. Next year is now. As in, maybe next year. No, next year is now. It was that kind of...
No, actually, I get what you're saying. I'm just...
Oh, I was going to say, you had to have seen this thing.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
I was like, what? Okay. But anyways, so culturally it means everything. Can you elaborate a little bit more specifically on that? I know what you're saying, but what else does it mean to you?
No, I think Cleveland tended to use, because of all the different near misses and dramatic losses that has happened in sports over the past 50 years, people tend to have the mentality of, you could call it waiting for the other shoe to drop. When things tend to look like they're good, people would usually say things like, oh, well, we all know how this ends up, or we know what's going to happen. Typical Cleveland, something will happen in the end to reverse everything good that's happening, and it'll be a dramatic loss of some sort, and just add that to the pile of 50 plus years of crappy, overly dramatic and tragic losses. Now, that mentality can kind of, I mean, it's always been bullshit in the sense that they've just been that unlucky.
Right.
But now here's an actual example of saying, no, just your team isn't necessarily just going to lose because they're from Cleveland, because one just proved that wrong.
But you never believed that.
No.
No matter how deep we go back years back. Or,
No.
Okay.
I always found it weird that people that actually did believe that, yet still rooted for all the Cleveland teams. I always wanted to be like, well, do you actually think that these Cleveland teams won't do anything if you actually think that they're cursed? Or think that it's always going to end badly? You really fucked up in the head for even following or paying attention or getting invested in the teams. That's really stupid.
So what
It's really dumb.
what extent did people take it to? Because I've seen you take it only so far as to say, oh, another day, but that's all you've ever done. So people that took it too far, in what way did they take the curse idea too far?
They would say, well, it would always be like, yeah, this is Cleveland, this is how it always ends.
Sure.
Or, when things are going well, they almost wouldn't be able to be positive about it and would be like, yeah, well, we know how this is going to end. This is how it's always ends. Yeah, before.
Now, during that California game, weren't there moments?
California game?
California game?
Weren't they away or somewhere? Where were they?
They were playing the Golden State Warriors. Who
Ladies
blew
and
a
gentlemen,
3-1
let me know
lead.
that he referred to the series against the Golden State Warriors as, quote unquote, the California game.
Were they not in California?
Please don't.
They were, but there's like 4 other California
That's the
teams.
strangest way of referring to it.
Gotcha,
That's fine.
Gotcha. So,
That's fine. That's
so
okay.
We accept
during
it.
that part, was there a part of you that saw even though you don't believe in stuff like that usually, did you see stuff during this game? We'll call it the California game, where people were like, where you were like, here's that moment where people were going to latch on.
When they were down 3-1 and they came back from that 3-1 lead.
When they were down from a 3-1 lead, at that point, after game 4, they're down 3-1.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking like, oh yeah, typical Cleveland. No, it's just more like, oh crap, they're not gonna win because they're down 3-1 and no one has ever come back from a 3-1
Right.
deficit. It was just more. What had nothing to do with Cleveland for me. It was just more like, oh well, no one's ever been able.
No,
to
exactly,
do this,
right.
So,
I remember this conversation. You talked to Ellen about it, and she was being optimistic, but that's partially because she had the sunny disposition that I have, where she doesn't know how to correctly talk about sports, and she was like,
Right.
"I think they're gonna go all the way," but they did. But that's not really, that was great that they did.
Well, thanks to Ellen saying that they went all the way.
What I'm trying to say is that Ellen did that.
Yeah.
But also back to the present.
yes.
The Indians. What's it? The difference between what you're talking about with the Cavs versus this? What's the difference, if
I
any?
mean, in terms of
Cultural value, if any.
it's what's different is that since it's only been 4 months since we've seen the Cavs lose, I think there's been a win. See, it's the Cleveland programming. Even me, the most
No, I know.
positive, unsuperstitious Cleveland fan, I'm almost programmed to say lose after I say the word Cleveland. After Cleveland won on June 19th, 2016, it's only been 4 months since then. That was 4 months ago. I think right now there's a change in the idea of, oh well, yeah, they got this far, but they're probably going to lose because Cleveland always loses. That kind of negative mentality isn't as prevalent now. Although what's funny is, it still is a little bit.
Is it?
Yeah, I've heard it sometimes a little bit. It's like, oh, well, something will probably happen. And it's like, man, we just had a team completely defy that line of thinking 4 months ago. But it's almost as if that 4 months isn't quite enough to deprogram people from decades of that pessimistic way of thinking. People still aren't. It's better, but people still aren't completely 100% deprogrammed.
I think with me, one of my first sports memories, and also one of the most devastating, was the 1997 World Series.
Yes.
And that was just like It's like so hard to deprogram.
And then when at the very last game 7, the very last inning they have a lead, and just at the very last second they essentially lose the game. It's the most dramatic way to lose a baseball.
Whenever I want to be like self-deprecating and just like make myself feel like shit because whatever happened that day, I'll watch the video of that World Series.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's fucking depressing.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, it's very depressing. But
wait, you're feeling bad, so you watch that? Normally people feel bad. They watch something to make themselves feel bad.
I get what he's going for because like, I had a bad time in 2012 with like a family member who was in the hospital, and that's when I chose to watch Breaking Bad, and it totally worked. I was in the right place to watch Breaking Bad.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So
You're down.
In a sense, you find something that's even more depressing.
Yes,
in a
kind
way
of.
That
you kind of feel like piling on.
Pile on. It's almost a pile on though. It's not a comparison game. It's not a comparison game.
Yeah.
It's not about like, oh, at least I'm not Breaking Bad. No.
True.
It's more about I'm down here. Well, I'm down here. Let me check out the view.
Right. Like I think one of the first times I did that was the year that they went to the wild card game. Remember that when they were like
2013?
Yeah, but they were like they were like right on the verge of like being potentially going for first place, and then they played Detroit, and then Chris Perez ruined it in the 9th inning. When Kluber had that brilliant game. That after that game, that's when I watched that like video for like the first time, and now it's just like, every time.
I probably only seen that video clip you're talking about a couple of times.
It's pretty terrible.
Awful.
It's terrible.
Really?
But like just the hope that the Indians be in the World Series this year, on top of the Cavaliers winning. I mean, God, I hope the Indians win. But like,
let me ask you this, because someone has brought this question to me.
Mm-hmm.
They said with the Cavs winning in June and where we're at in the mental state as a fan right now, which is a pretty positive one. Mm-hmm. If the Indians don't pull this off, is it going to sting nearly as much as it would have if, let's say, the Cavs never won anything in June? Because it's going to sting.
It's going to sting.
Is it going to sting as much?
I don't think it will sting as much.
I don't think it is either, which is weird to say. But
I agree.
But the thing is, if the Indians win, the win will be like, you know how happy we were during the Cavs.
Right.
The Indians winning will be like 10 times more than that.
I know it will be for me just because I'm a bigger baseball fan.
Well, so am I. Like honestly, until like this past like couple years. And it's totally because, like, when it comes to basketball, I'm just I'll admit I'm a bandwagon jumper because it's not my favorite sport. But, like, the Indians and the Browns, it used to be Indians, Browns, Cavaliers. Now the Browns are such crap that I'll put them down there at the bottom. But, like, and plus the Cavaliers are, like, great. They won the championship. But the Indians will forever be my number one Cleveland team. It needs to happen. They need to win the World Series. Yeah. So I think we're winning it this year would be, especially the way they're winning it this year with like all the injuries that they've gone through, would be so satisfying, so much more satisfying than like the Cavaliers even.
Right. And so if you take that idea, you guys aren't included in this, but the majority of Northeast Ohioans who are looking at it more negatively than you two are. Mm-hmm. And it would sting more maybe in their head, whatever. There's a lot of Midwestern states and towns like this, but what does it have to do outside of sports with the mentality that's then brought in? Like, a lot of Ohioans move out. They move to New York, they move to Florida, they move to California, they move somewhere. And then they come back, and then they do that again, and then they come back, and blah. And a lot of states are like this. I'm not singling us out, but there's we've known a lot of people that do that, and they're all cool, but like once in a while, there's this depression that surrounds it, right? I'm always getting sucked back in. There's no jobs here, blah, whatever the thing, whatever they're stuck doing, always wanting to be wherever they're not. Would that describe a Cleveland sports fan? Always wanting to be where they're not?
Then you mean almost wishing that we
Browns
could be rooting for another team or something?
Yeah, the martyr thing.
Well, I think like and I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but like the Cavaliers didn't like make Cleveland like great again. The Cavaliers like came back as Cleveland was becoming great again. It wasn't
Okay.
like, oh, Cavaliers won a championship. Now Cleveland's awesome. It
And you're
was the
speaking
Cleveland.
of like what? Ohio City, like
Just-
just little like here and there.
Just
like,
economic
pop up.
development,
Yeah,
jobs. I mean,
Jobs.
the restaurants are
A bit
awesome.
of a downtown revitalization.
Exactly.
Of course,
That's
yeah,
exactly
all
it.
that,
Yeah. I mean, they kind of like coincided, but like I don't think like it necessarily like the Cavaliers being good caused Cleveland to be great. It just happened to have it all at the same time, and it's awesome.
Right. I think
Let
that's
alone that LeBron James left for a while, Cleveland still continued to build up culturally while he was gone, right?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, LeBron coming back, I mean, obviously, like, helped, like, a lot of the restaurants and stuff, but I think, like, you know, all those, like, Michael Simon restaurants were, like, happening even before he came back. So,
Yes. Okay.
I mean, obviously, him coming back helps because it gets people in seats who are going to go and eat food, but I think Cleveland was doing good, if not great, by the time he came back. He just, like, LeBron coming back just like
he gave
made
it a more visible face.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Outsiders.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
the people here knew of how some things were being revitalized, especially like around downtown and the heart
Mm-hmm.
of downtown. I think outsiders didn't realize that as much until like LeBron came back and kind of put them in a more
I mean,
national perspective.
LeBron, the RNC convention, everything.
Right.
Yeah, it did.
They've had some national media presence that way
Mm-hmm.
that I think has made other people realize, oh, that city looks better. It seems like they're doing better than what
I
we've
mean,
heard of in the past.
like we got the convention, the RNC convention before. I think it was before LeBron came back.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's like, obviously Cleveland was doing good enough to get like a major convention before even LeBron came back. So it's like,
yeah.
it's definitely a cool time, even if the sports stuff wasn't happening, to be in Cleveland.
It's
The
still
sports stuff
big,
is
yeah.
just an added bonus.
Right.
I mean, it's a really, really, really good bonus.
Right.
But yeah, totally.
So what do you think that'll mean for people that want to get out of here? That like are always wanting to get out wherever they go, you know?
I mean, there's always going to be people
I think
like,
it's
They're the same no matter what happens.
there's going to be some people who want to get out no matter what because of the weather or whatever. But like,
some people.
I don't-
I think some people just have that mentality, regardless of where they're at.
Yeah,
it
and
doesn't matter
that's-
so much where they're at. It's just I need to leave where I was originally located, just because
right.
I feel like I need. I feel like I'm not progressing myself unless I leave and get out.
And I don't mean it. It sounds like I'm making fun of people that move somewhere, but no, it's just that they have a negative outlook on where they are that I'm making fun of. It's not that they can go. That's cool, but like that they act like their problems stem from Northeast Ohio. Sometimes it's a little bit like, hey, I get that there's a couple things.
Yeah, right.
But it's not
Usually
everything.
It's just.
They're just playing off as stereotypes and using excuses half the time, and then half the time it's just.
Or they just have. I think it could be a natural thing where if you just grow up somewhere and you feel compelled to go somewhere else. That's not weird, but I think maybe some
No,
people
that's good.
try to think. I think a lot of people with that feeling though maybe don't understand why they feel that way, and it's like, well, this sucks or that sucks about my original place. So that'll give you a reason why you should
Right.
just go.
And the Cleveland comeback doesn't like suit everyone. Like if you're a restaurateur or you know, in business or banking, like it's a good time for you, but it's not a good time for everybody. It's just like Cleveland has like these few things that it's like
He's talking about black people. They're still not doing too well.
that's not what I meant at all, but I meant screw you, man. I mean, Cleveland just has its like certain businesses that have been here for a while, like KeyBank or whatever, and plus the restaurants like Michael Simon's brought in that do
Basically, he's implying that the urban citizens of our city might not be in the best economic shape yet to enjoy all the amenities of our revitalized restaurant industry.
You're not posting this podcast, are you? That's not correct. I was thinking more of. I'm trying to think of like a different business that's not really Cleveland.
Well, here's what I was going to jump onto actually is film. Like, so the stuff that isn't totally thrived, still doing well. Can I talk about this, Craig? Cleveland Film Fest? Can I talk or no?
Oh boy, yeah. Go.
Okay. So it's not. I don't know this, but just from an outsider perspective, it's not necessarily thriving, but doing pretty okay. The film industry in Cleveland, like it's hard to even act like that's your thing.
Well,
but the industry that they run, at least what they do, their corner of the earth when it comes to like showing films, giving people an outlet, etc. in Cleveland is noted, if not doing pretty well. And Greg was trying to think of employment that wasn't doing as well as restaurants and things of that nature, and that's probably one to point to. But you're kind of involved, and what do you have to say on the? That is a jumping off point. That on the creative front of jobs in Cleveland, like
I think it does pretty well. There's a lot of there are a number of different foundations in town that are invested with quite a bit of money that put a bunch of money into things like arts and museums, stuff like that. That's always been strong in Cleveland, even in the darker times, just because the money for that and these foundations have been around for 50, 60 years. So that's actually always been pretty, in terms of the museums that they have here and different art festivals and stuff like that are sponsored and have been for a long time. Those are pretty strong for a smaller size metropolitan area like Cleveland. I mean, Cleveland isn't really considered to be that large of a metro city, or even. I mean, it's more so the metro area of like Cleveland, Akron, and Canton, and all that combined. But I think that part has always been and is still going really strong.
Plus,
maybe the film festival is pretty. The annual film festival they have every year of a bunch of different. They host viewings of a bunch of different independent films from all over the world over the span of a week. I mean, they just kind of take over a theater downtown and do that for a week, and they get a ton of people.
Yeah, that's the remarkable part of it all.
Right.
Is that they actually get a bunch of people attending who are not filmmakers, but there to actually just watch or attend.
Right, yeah.
Whatever
just a bunch of general citizens that just come and check it out. I mean, that's a good example of something that's been going strong for like 40 years now, the film festival.
Right. And so the pride that we have talked about based on the sports and then, spreading out into other things like film fest and stuff that you guys have, is that in part thanks to coming from East Palestine, Ohio, and becoming Clevelanders and not being as jaded as the locally raised?
Wait, what are you saying? What's the question?
The Cleveland pride that you have?
Yeah.
Is it because you're from East Palestine? You know what I mean? Like, are you new, fresh-faced, happier than the Clevelander who has been here too long?
Oh. Maybe. I know in some respects, like, I remember thinking, like, being in college and stuff, like...
you were always around here. I'm not...
Always around, but always knew that, like, I really didn't want to be my home base.
Listeners, you know where he went to college? Pittsburgh.
His undergraduate was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, we'll go ahead.
His graduate was Case. So...
And we'll resume the podcast now.
And
so
you went
college,
to Case. You went to Case, yes?
Yeah, during college, Case Western Reserve.
Yes, Cleveland.
Now, I knew that I wanted to make a more permanent home base somewhere else, not East Palestine. Like I knew, I can't stick around there because I don't think I would be happy. in terms of not, like some of the things I do now, some of the stuff I participate in or whatever, can't really do around that
No.
in a small town like that.
You could do versions of them, but they would be a little different. It would be like local high school games and teaching middle school or high school, as opposed to doing stuff that's more directly scientific.
Just even the bottom line of even the kind of job I would want to have.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You'd have to basically teach the job you wanted there.
And I couldn't, it's one thing to work for somewhere like the Cleveland Clinic or the VA hospital versus like there's no kind of research at like a Salem Community Hospital or something.
Teaching.
Yeah, it's just not.
You'd be teaching. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be it.
But okay, so yes, maybe to the enthusiasm thing, as far as like you saw opportunity that other people didn't see because they were already here or whatever. Like
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't feel like people are too jaded here.
Yeah, most are probably
About
fine, but we're
wanting
talking
to
about yeah.
I mean, people can act jaded and say, yeah, this city has this wrong with it, that wrong with it, but it never seems to be expressed in terms of, yeah, I gotta get out of here, I gotta find a way to get out of here. People don't, I mean, at least not older people. I guess there have been younger people that have been leaving that did grow up here and eventually went to other cities.
And that's who I'm more well, the ones that did it for a reason where they're
That's
like
almost kind of an
unhappy.
Ohio thing, though. Ohio in general is losing population that way.
Sure. And like the fact that they're losing population, okay, but the fact that some of those people are people that are just more negative about Ohio than you guys are, that's it's like it's interesting to try to get down to the root of them, just obviously with conjecture, like not by actually thinking I can solve anything, but just like what's their mentality if you're leaving East Palestine and they're leaving Cleveland, and what's that about, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting thing to just like spitball on, but not really. There's no real answer to it's obviously somewhat rhetorical to even talk about it.
Right.
I mean, these Palestine mentality, which I personally don't adhere to, I mean, it's not like there are people in Cleveland that aren't like that, and there are parts of Cleveland where it's obviously like that, but I choose not to live there.
Oh, so you're saying that the redneck small town thing?
I wouldn't even say like redneck, just the blue collarness. There's nothing wrong about being like a blue collar, salty earth worker or anything.
Right.
That's just not me,
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's referring to white people. Greg Allison does not like white people. Okay, continue.
Correct bait ruins everything. I just, you live in the actual city, and that works for you. I live in this like suburb, like with a mall right down the road and like houses on the street sort of deal. And that works for me. It's just
He lives
like,
at 1207 Mayfield Road. Send them fan mail, please.
that's not where I live at all. But it's just I don't know. But I think like living in Cleveland, you can find, if you want that East Palestine mentality, you can find it. If you want the suburban mentality, you
It's
can
all
find
the
it.
options.
Okay.
Yeah, all the options are here.
But here's a good example. I can, during a span of a day, in which I've had this day last week, I've woken up here in my loft apartment, whatever. I've gone to work over at the Cleveland Clinic Hospital. Went to eat at a little, Thai restaurant for dinner. Come home, take auto and go hiking in the Metro Park. It's complete, even way more beautiful nature, honestly, than you can really find on that scale in East Palestine. And then come home right from that and go to a baseball game downtown. Like I can do all that in the span of a day. And you can't have a day like that in somewhere like East Palestine.
Right.
You don't have the option to have a day like that.
The larger the week or so. I've touched on this on
podcasts with other guests, but say not a day, but a whole week or whatever. Ohioans, just all around. The other draw is New York, Chicago, Washington D.C. Right? Just in general, that like you can take just a couple days out of your life and do one of those things. And like,
Right.
you know, you and me not long ago with our friend Peppy did a bullskit podcast of a New York trip, 2 days, and we just flew up there.
Right.
We didn't fly, we drove, but you know, we zipped up there and did all
Well,
this
we
crap.
didn't zip.
We didn't
drove.
zip. We didn't take a zip car. We drove a car.
Acrobatics.
It was a. I'll tell you the make and model. But you know the Ohio thing. A lot of people say this about it, and maybe it doesn't need reiterated, but you're close to it a lot too, and larger scale than what you guys are talking about. And I would only say that to add to that, even in your one day, where you go and you check out the Metro Park, you check out the time, you could go to East Palestine and back and not lose a whole lot off the day. That's what's cool. You're not even that far away.
True.
Like that's what's interesting about it, is that East Palestine doesn't have that stuff, but Northeast, yeah, I mean, it's just all everyone knows each other and all that crap too. That's all very interesting to me as well.
Everyone knows each other and all that crap. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cleveland is like in its own way a small town. Like I
Right.
run into people on the streets I know all the time.
Right.
I don't know if you get that, but
Did you see Jim the other day? I walked past him.
who? Which-
Jim. You know, he's friends with Ron.
He's doing a bit. Just go with it. It's
What
funny.
was my bit?
This is
goddammit?
funny.
I really don't like him in this podcast.
It would have been funny, but okay, here we are.
Well,
I was gonna
Jim,
let
I
you
know
on
Jim.
that.
Jim knows Ron, right?
it wasn't
See,
funny to
that's what
start
you have to
with.
do, Greg. God.
And this is
Ron
why-
and Jim are a couple, yes? I don't know. Let's just put a spin on it. Mix it up.
This is why I don't live that close to either one of you. Actually, there's at least a 30-minute buffer from everybody.
I'm sorry.
We're like
Ron and Jim.
24.
Ron and Jim live where? We need a place. Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. Ron and Jim live in Cleveland, Ohio. And what are they doing? Where do they work? What do they work?
Bottle cap or something.
Film festival. All right. I heard film festival. Okay. So Ron and Jim work at a film festival in where was it again, sir? Cleveland, Ohio. Yes. Cleveland.
Can you shut up?
We're doing comedy. You see.
Shut up anytime.
So to wrap this thing up.
I was making fun of the fact that whenever people say I run into people I know all the time.
Right.
Yeah, of course you do, because we're always the people that you know them because you're in the same places all the time. It's just like the weirdest thing ever. That's all I'm saying.
I actually
Isn't it
heard.
weird how we run into,
No, I
run
know.
into the same people every
It's
day?
actually funny.
It's just right there. I
understand.
know how that happens, but
I understand where you're coming from
Yeah.
a little bit.
no, and I knew what Greg meant. I'm
Right,
just
but you're
taking
just-
his
yeah.
words literally. And
But you know
being an
what?
asshole.
But you know
He's
what?
being a jerk.
Yeah. No, I was in a coffee shop in Youngstown.
I'm a white guy. That's why he hates me.
He hates white people. He's a white
I
guy.
don't like white people.
Listeners, I hope you're not assuming we're all white just by the sound of our voices.
Hell!
You're racist if that's the case. But I was in a coffee shop in Youngstown earlier this morning, and I heard somebody run into somebody at the counter. I was just there, like sitting,
Yeah,
writing.
you're not a white guy. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I was writing my novel in a coffee shop. Again, don't know I'm a white guy, listeners. Anyways, okay, now you do know. But they ran into each other. I remember, you remember him? I remember him too. Oh my God, he was a side phone. And the guy left. And the guy turned to the barista, who he also knew, and was like to the barista, he was like, "Oh man, I know that guy's friend. We just realized it about each other. We have this connection." And she was like, "Oh man, you know everybody. It seems like everyone knows everyone around here." And he was like, "I am surprised at the number of people that I run into every day." And it would have been funny to have you there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, to have you there for
That's
that, because you would have been like, "You know what, man? You probably go to the same coffee shop every morning." And and you would have, wanted to rip the guy a new one because he was stating the obvious a lot more than what Greg was just doing. But it was interesting because his thing was like, he said it was nauseating almost
He described it as nauseating.
Nauseating that so many people that he ran into.
What's your thought on that?
That's weird.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like he was joking, but like he was like,
Oh, so nauseating.
he was like, it's almost nauseating because I know everyone. It's almost like he almost sounded claustrophobic about it, or that's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
No,
like,
that's
you know,
sounds
he
like
sounded like he was
somewhat
just like,
appropriate word.
yeah, whatever the word is. But do you feel that at all? A, if you go back to East Palestine. B, if you're around like me and the friends of mine that you know that we all know, or in Cleveland, do you feel that way anywhere?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't. I'm around a lot of the same people up here in Cleveland, and it doesn't bother me. I can be around some people that I don't necessarily know, but know of them, and they know who I am from East Palestine, just because we grew up there, and it's a small enough town. People do know each other fairly well, or can recognize each other pretty easily. That can just be annoying. Not nauseating, but annoying just because 90% of those people I don't necessarily either know or that well, or if I do, don't really care for them and don't like them. So that can be kind of annoying. But having that many people I know in general, like up here, it's not a bad thing because I don't normally. There aren't too many people I have to see all the time that bother me.
Yeah.
You know, I guess back home I'm only there. Those people being there are just a byproduct of me going to see the couple people that don't bother me.
Yeah, that's weird.
You just kind of have to put up with it. I don't know. I'm making it sound worse than it is.
It's like you guys. It's like
nothing
you guys are the guys you hate in Cleveland of East Palestine, kind of.
Pretty
like,
much,
in like
yeah.
this weird, not in all encompassing sports way necessarily, but it's almost like there is this small. No, it's not bad. It's small. It's not like knowingly negative, but it's a small part of you that did run away in some sense, some small sense. Didn't run far.
The whole part of me, all of me ran the whole way and got out.
Well, you know,
Every bit of it.
I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think you look at East Palestine as like a terrible place. Is all I mean.
No. I don't look at it as terrible.
do,
It's
that's
just
okay.
not, I guess, not fulfilling enough.
That's
It's
cool.
not enough.
Yeah.
What's there is fine. It's just doesn't have everything that I want. It doesn't have everything that I have here, I guess.
And again,
Because of the
I'm
variety
inclined
of
to
things.
understand that in that I feel East Palestine is completely encompassed still in this world, and so it's not like you like cut ties with it by any means.
Right.
So it's kind of a moot point in that regard to act like it's like gone or something. But in wrapping up, so we touched on Cavs, mostly Cavs and Indians
The
stuff
Cavs, as you put it, the Cavs winning the World Series
in the California game.
in the California.
The Cavs in the California game. Is there anything you want to add regarding those things, or any advice you have for listeners who might be in the same Ohio circumstances that a lot of us are, economically, culturally, or otherwise?
Yeah, one, go Tribe. Two, if the Tribe do lose, and I happen to know you, and I hear you say anything like, yeah, typical Cleveland, I will
Yes.
hurt you.
Okay,
I will
yeah.
inflict physical pain upon you.
Yeah, man. Great.
And after listening to this podcast, you'll understand why I would do that to you. So you shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
And actually, you should accept it when I do it to you and say, you know what, thank you, Craig. Thank you for straightening me out. Because my pessimism was completely unwarranted.
If you're going to go as far as to say it after he just told you not to say it, be prepared to completely accept the consequence.
Exactly.
Greg?
Say one, go Tribe. And then
One,
two.
go Tribe, and two,
There you go.
as painful as it is sticking with the team sometimes, the end result is one of the best moments of your life.
All right.
I mean, we experienced a lot of that Cavaliers championship together. It was just
I'm not part of this, so what are you?
Shut up.
You're on your own here, dude. Just say your bit.
Hey man, take what Greg said and apply it to a broader idea, and who knows?
Yeah, I guess it could be taken on any context, really. If you stick with something that's doesn't seem worthwhile half the time, if not most of the time, then it works out at the end. Then you might end up crying in the middle of Prospect Street in Cleveland. You never know.
In a happy way again, yes.
Yeah, totally.
Happy tears.
Happy, yeah. Or standing in the middle of East 9th at 4 a.m. waiting for a parade that doesn't start for 6 hours.
Also happy.
This
Yes.
is hypothetical.
Yeah, hypothetical.
Very hypothetical.
It's very hypothetical.
Very hypothetical.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Nursery Podcast, I'm Lee Boyle.
I'm Craig.
I'm crying.
And this podcast was not brought to you by the Orange Avocado, but you should go there anyways. Find it. It's in Boardman, Ohio.
1393 Boardman Campville Road, Boardman, Ohio. And be sure, people, you don't want to just hang out on the iTunes podcast app. We have a backlog of episodes. Thirdclass.net and bullskit.com. Get on it, man.
Really?
Get on the horn.
I don't use the iTunes app, should I?
Good, no.
I have an Android phone.
You should
so I
use
wouldn't have-
exclusively thirdclass.net or bullskit.com for all your podcast needs.
What's my app?
Tell me
Yeah, my
more.
app.
Yes, so thirdclass.net is a small rock and roll musical project that me and my friends have had since 1999, and bullskit.com champions a comedy troupe that does online uncalled for crude comedy. Check out Third Class or Bullskit Productions and be pleasantly surprised by the 100+ episodes of Nursery podcast backlog, in that it's not as horrible as you thought it was. Look, Mom, we're on a podcast.
Make some pizza, Karen.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to everyone who listened to this episode of Nursery. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention another sponsor, Timeless Shots Photography. They do the photography for my band Third Class. It's a good friend of mine, Brandon Hall. You can go to timelessshots.com and book him for your next wedding, family photo, or maybe you're going to do what I do and just goof around and jump off of an amp holding your guitar or a keyboard. Or maybe you just want to get a picture with your puppy. Huh? Me and my wife get pictures with our dogs. We're those people. Hey, I'm not scared to admit it. So if you want, just get down to the old laptop or phone and go to www.timelessshots.com. Book your photography session today with Timeless Shots Photography. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, and everywhere else. You're going to be very satisfied. This guy's very accommodating. He does exactly what you want him to do. And he has a vision. He has good ideas for backgrounds, good ideas for poses. Timeless Shots Photography. Thanks for listening, guys.
Nursery Podcast is sponsored by the Orange Avocado, Timeless Shots Photography, Eli Funk Records, Juche, Third Class, and Bullskit Productions. Do you like to laugh? Yeah, me too. Check it out at bullskit.com. You're listening to Ohio's creative voice, Nursery Podcast. Thank you for listening.